Not. I know for some of you this may be new, but we are live streaming our Wednesday night services through the summer months. And hopefully, looks like probably after Labor Day, we will begin a new series in the sanctuary with Joe Carter leading that, but we'll send out an email blast with more information. But as we've been streaming these Wednesday nights that we've had the opportunity to be with you, we've talked about our life and kind of our journey on what the Lord has seen us through with our how we met and how we got married, and we kind of have been taking our time with part of Gabriel's journey and what we lived through in the earlier years with his car accident. And we are still kind of in that same time frame. We talked about our time in Savannah, and it's been quite emotional. Sometimes expected, and then sometimes unexpected. But we've processed through, and I hope you guys have been encouraged and been blessed by the faithfulness, really, of the Lord.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we took a week or so off, at least a week, not 2 weeks off, I think, due to travel or sickness, or maybe a combination of both. But most of you have been journeying with us, and it's been a journey all over again.
Yes,
And
an emotional journey.
It has been. We talk about dealing with emotions and not, trying to put emotions either in categories or just completely turn the off switch off. Emotions are a very vital part of our existence, and many of you have laughed with us and cried with us, and it's brought up some not deep wounds, but some deep memories that have been a part of the journey. And for part of it, for me at least, not that I just want to relive those moments, but there's something about the way the Lord created us. Those memories have purposes, just like just the way He created us. And I think it's what we do with those memories, how we learn from those memories, and how we continue to process through those memories that makes us a better person or better people through our unique journeys. So it's been enlightening for sure. It's been it's almost like writing a book, except you're speaking it.
Yeah. Well, we talked about to kind of catch you guys up. We were only home 8 days between our hospital stay in Savannah in the ICU, and then we were able to come home because we were discharged home by the neurologist without any kind of hope, or because in the medical field sometimes they think any hope is false hope. They don't want to give false hope, so they don't give you any hope. But we know that our hope and trust are in the Lord. And so we were discharged home. Gabriel was completely nonverbal. He was not tracking. So he would not follow your finger. He would not respond to voice commands. He wouldn't squeeze your finger. He wouldn't try to sit up. He was just laying there. He was breathing. Um, and, during that 8-day window, we had a couple of things that took place. One not so good, one so really good. But he cried out one time that was kind of crushing to our mama and daddy heart. And then he laughed out loud. And so we knew, and obviously he slept through the night. From the moment we left Savannah till we got home, he was settled at home. And so we knew he was in there. He just couldn't communicate to us what was happening. And so we got on the phone, and the Lord miraculously got us in without a doctor's referral to Children's Healthcare of Atlanta, the Johnson Ferry location. They're 1 in 5 in the nation for pediatric brain rehabilitation. So the Lord knew right where to drop us. And so we were home 8 days, and we hit the road again.
Yeah.
And that meant another separation, or a bigger separation, actually, because you had been with
With you guys.
with us the whole time
Yeah.
up until that point. But you were when we came home and we got the transfer. You were in the middle of your kind of theology school, or um,
I
the
was getting my license. I
yeah,
was getting working on my ordination.
correct. So you were going to school, and there were requirements for every weekend,
Yeah.
and so you had already missed the maximum, and of course, they had grace because of the circumstance, obviously. But there was a time when you had to shift and try to refocus.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an interesting dynamic, going from the weeks we were in Savannah, um, to shifting back to 8 days and then shifting to Atlanta, knowing that we were going from being an hour and 15 minutes from home to being about 4.5 hours from home. Yeah. And so I think, for me, we were semi discussing what we would talk about tonight. And I don't want to, I know we walked through a lot of the aspects of the accident and different aspects of Revelation. I think that was important for people to hear how Jesus was showing up on the scene and how he's always doing more than we can see. He's a very complex God that does a lot at one time in many different spheres. And you have to understand that when you're walking with the Lord, is that it's just not about you. You're part of the mix, but it's just not about you or us. But God was doing a lot of things at one time. I don't want to leave out, our time in Atlanta, even though that was the longest stay in the hospital
Yeah.
that you had, because I was not staying in the hospital like she was. I was traveling back and forth every other weekend. But I think and if you want to steer us in a different direction, that's fine too. But I don't want people to miss out on this particular thought that I'm about to release. And we say this a lot too, is if you think you've got it bad, just look around. There's somebody that's got it worse. No matter what we are facing, if we think what we're facing is, again, we're not into comparison. We're not comparing my bad to your bad, because my bad is my bad and your bad is your bad. My stuff is my stuff and your stuff is your stuff. But as critical as Gabriel was, when we got to Atlanta, and I want to share a few of the stories, if you don't mind, of people who were in worse shape than we were, kids.
Yeah.
That were bad. They were very sick. But here's the difference between us, difference between people listening, how differently people are, and how they handle things, and how they work and process through things, is that what we saw was a fundamental that God instituted into life when He said, "Let there be life," and breathed life into Adam, and then brought Eve out of Adam and started everything. And was the institution of family. How important family was, and some of the things we saw in Atlanta was anything but family. There were kids And I want you to talk about it if you don't mind. I don't remember the little girl's name.
Haley.
Haley, yeah. But just a few stories that we'll share because as hurting as we were, whew, as hurting as we were, there were children that were also hurting. As hurt as Gabriel was physically with the traumatic brain injury, what made Gabriel different than a lot of these other kids is Gabriel had two parents that were being parents. And you might say, well, I would be there for my child, or I'd be there for my loved one, or my husband or wife, and I hope you would be. But what we saw was the complete opposite. We saw a lot of children that there was no one there to love them. There was no one there to care for them. There was no one there to say it's going to be okay. And God used you in one particular instance to share that love, and I want you to share that story.
Okay. So there was a 3-year-old girl with a spinal injury. So she was good except for her body. Her brain was good. Her ability to speak was great. She was not breathing on her own, and had to wear a halo, and then she lived on a vent. So she had to learn to hear the machine breathe for her and then speak. And I didn't know we were deep diving. So,
I just feel like we can't leave these things out.
no, I agree. I just, um, so obviously, Gabriel was still, we didn't have to tie him in with sheets and towels and stuff. They were able to get the proper way to transport him. So he had a little chest straps and side things, a little headrest to hold his head up. So he wasn't. I know last week or the last time we talked about it, you brought up that one particular experience, and I had not anticipated it. It hit me harder than I expected, I guess, when we had to kind of makeshift strap him in. But Haley, she loved Gabriel. Um, and some of you who know Gabriel are like, oh, yeah, I get that. Well, Gabriel wasn't really, again, he's not talking at this point. We're learning all kind of things. And I'll go into a little bit more about where he is and where we were during that time frame. But in this particular situation, Haley was right next door to us. And so Jamie would come up on the weekends or a weekend. So they would alternate. Jamie would come up on the weekend, and then my parents would come up, and then Jamie would come up, and my parents would come up. And that was kind of our routine. And Haley even loved my daddy. I don't know if you remember that, but Papa Morrell. But she would only eat if we went to dinner or if we were at dinner, if we sat with them. They had a hard time getting her to eat. And her mom and her own struggles, was
Not there a lot.
not there a lot. So in you can they provide MARTA passes and different things. And Haley's mom would, use those. And she would, go away for a while. And the hardest thing is when she would cry for her mom during the night. and just that yearning to have someone in the room was really was really hard to hear, you know. And I think it's important for people to understand, especially with kids, you know, it's not what you do, it's not how much you buy, it's that you're in the room. If you show up, it does something for them, to them. Um,
It brings a huge level of comfort. Just
your presence.
yeah, just the visuality of you being there. Because you got to think, we're next door, and Radonna has done everything she can possibly do to make that room look like Gabriel's room.
Yeah, I was going to go there, but I
Yeah.
hadn't yet.
But with what she did as far as just making him feel like it was similar to his his home environment. But then but at the same time you're looking at 4 hospital walls, and there's no doubt it's a hospital, and nothing looks familiar. No matter, I don't know where they came from. We were 4.5 hours away. Being 1 out of 5, she could have been from another state for all we
Yeah.
know about. So nothing looked familiar to her. Cutest little girl, never forget it. Had the halo on her head that was supporting her neck. She was paralyzed from the neck down. And I would go in there every time I went, speak to her and talk with her. And you were right; she had to time her talking in between the breaths of the machine. But even in her condition, she found some type of joy and purpose in where she was. In a sense, happy to be alive in the capacity in which she was, but still longing. No matter with us being there, we were not her parent or parents, but we were like almost like maybe the wrong word, arrogant or something, or a step in, or a get by, or
She felt, yeah,
but
family adjacent.
yeah, but I think she realized what was going on in the room beside her. Meaning, you were there, I was there, people were coming in and out, and only thing that was coming in and out of her room, most instances, was doctors. So she was longing for
Well, and it was,
some sense of normality.
yeah, and it was more compounded on the weekends, obviously, you
Yeah.
know.
And that, yeah, basically, yeah. And like I vaguely remember seeing her mother and never saw her on a weekend.
Yeah.
It's like she vanished on the weekend. So just kind of almost like that sense of abandonment.
Yes.
Like you have abandoned me.
Yeah.
And you would think, guys, as we're talking through this tonight, that who would do that to their kid? Well, believe it or not, a lot of people have done it, are doing it, and will still do it. I think if we're not careful, we become very selfish. If it doesn't fit in our agenda, or if it messes up our lifestyle, or our patterns, or our whatever we're doing in life, circle of life, then if it poses a threat to that, then all of a sudden we do something in opposition of that. But
Well, and I think too, it's important to recognize, you know, sometimes we put more on us, ourselves, adults. So we feel overwhelmed, obviously, with the situation or the circumstance. And so we try to cope in ways that we know how. But I think that sometimes us coping is detrimental to the person who needs the support.
Yeah.
And so, what I would say, especially just to kind of bring us out of this, my heart hurting in the moment, remembering that cry in the night, um, is again, as we're being overwhelmed, it is okay to be overwhelmed. We just can't check out. Be overwhelmed
Yeah. Still got
because you don't have to do anything, you know.
sometimes just be present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the comfort comes with the presence, with the in the room, you know.
Yeah.
Even when we were talking last time about Gabriel crying out and we couldn't take it. You couldn't take it, I couldn't take it. And we were darting like for the woods. Chung. And I'll never forget you turned and was like, "You stay." And I'm like, "How can I stay? I can't handle this." But I stayed. Do you know what I'm saying? And, I mean, who knows? Because the things that I came to terms with Gabriel in that time of his life, because he was nonverbal, he had no way of expressing his emotions at all, how he was feeling, what he was thinking. He could not express in any capacity other than his body would turn red all over. That's the only way we knew anything was happening. But I knew, and it goes back to that 1 Thessalonians 5:23, that spirit, soul, and body. I knew his spirit was whole. So I knew his spirit knew I was there. I knew his spirit could hear what I was saying. I knew that his spirit wasn't damaged. Really, his soul was, maybe traumatized, fragmented in places, but it was only the body that was broken down at that point. And so, the Lord had already allowed me this intense love connection with him before the accident because during this time I couldn't really, well, at this point I could hold him, but wasn't like what you would think because he had no way to support himself. So it was not, you know,
Dead weight.
yeah, it was not very like you would think, oh, in the movies, it was not anything like that. It was difficult, you know, but it's almost like when we've done all that we know to do, we stand. Basically, the same thing. When you've done everything you know to do, and you cannot know to do anything else, just be in the room. Just show up. Just be there.
Yeah.
You don't have to fix it. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. Um,
I mean, so many people check out, and I can't say in my whole life I had checked out, um, but it's tough because, man, everybody does things differently, and people respond and react differently. But
and one is not good or bad or indifferent. I think for the most part, people do the best they can do, you know? And the biggest thing is try not to harm, you know?
yeah, yeah, it's interesting that we have that choice whether to stay in the present or check out. Whereas in some instances, and again, I don't know all of God's creatures, but for ones that I have seen that, let's just use, we have geese all around our house. If something happens to one of their little ones or you approach them or something, there's danger, they don't run. They attack the danger. They're protecting those little ones at all cost. It's interesting that they have that internal mechanism, but yet sometimes we turn ours off.
Well, it goes back to that whole, though, fight or flight position of your position, fight or flight. because again, the root of that is survival. The geese know the danger, so they attack the danger for the survival of the geese.
Right.
You know what I mean? But other times, there's the flight, there's the survival mode,
Yeah.
you know. So,
It's just interesting that, you know, we're really the only, we have a choice.
yes,
At the end of the day, we have a
we
choice.
have a choice.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was the not the most heart wrenching thing, but it was one of the, it was up
It
there.
was it was difficult because we were living through it. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I mean, it was not, and that's why I had such a hard time because, again, I had not, I was going to go there, but not out the gate. Um, Talking about it because, I mean, it was a regular occurrence, you know, and 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 there was no consoling, you know.
I mean, sometimes you would just get up and go sit with her in the middle of the night.
Yeah, yeah,
And you know, the thing, and we could jump, be really, so there's things we left out in Savannah, which whenever, well, I don't feel like we should go back and walk through any of those stories, but there was other instances that God used you with other children in Savannah. You know, um, with the family who their little girl got run over. That was actually from our hometown.
yeah.
They were Catholic. Just this things like this, guys. People are looking for
Hope.
hope. Hope. I mean, people are, even today, people are so desiring hope. Just, you know, and they're looking for hope and presence. Just be here present in the moment with me. Even if I fail or I'm successful. Just be here. Some powerful tools the Lord's given us that sometimes we take for granted. I want to share one more story if you don't mind. I know, did these just keep flooding in? Or
Yeah.
we
I mean, I do have a specific thought, but if we get there, that's fine. If we don't, that's fine.
yeah. I mean, you know, through those moments, I want to tell one more instance of I heard myself.
Yeah, it's okay.
Uh,
I think somebody trickled in and is trickling out.
I was like, I heard myself in an echo. But you know, as I would journey back and forth, you know, meeting new people and
Things would change a lot
things were
because it'd be a 2 week rotation for you.
yeah, things were changing, and Gabriel was
Improving.
improving, and you know, we met a young girl who I think fell off of a car. I don't know if she was a cheerleader or something, banged her head, no physical damage, but a personality change. Remember that?
Yeah, she was not a cheerleader. She became a cheerleader. She was, and that's the other intricate. The brain is so intricate. So you see no difference. You meet her precious, sweet, because sometimes, for those of you who don't know, if the brain misfires, it can manifest as anger. So if that, I just lost it. If that neuro connection, that neuro pathway gets interrupted, it can manifest as anger. So, but super sweet girl, you would just think. I mean, she was just darling, just outgoing, bubbly. She was looking at being a cheerleader now. She was Miss Social Butterfly, blah, blah, blah. And come to find out, talking to her mom, she was completely different. Like nothing was affected physically, but her personality. And I've always been grateful in Gabriel's case, he's always been Gabriel. I mean, from pre-accident, going through this, post-accident, he has consistently who he was, who he is, who he will be. His personality is the same, but hers was completely different. Shy, almost introverted girl to this like inhibitions out the window, just
And she just rolled off of a
yeah, she was sitting on the hood of a car and fell onto the parking lot. You just never know with the brain itself on
Yeah.
how that.
But I want to tell this one more story. You guys would go down from your room into this physical therapy room, big room, and they'd have all the kids in there. And I never forget, um, you called me and you said, when you come, Gabriel's got something new he wants to show you. And I remember, they kidded us that he was the best dressed kid because every other week I'd come through a Tangler outlet on the way up the interstate, and there was a Carter's.
Well, and you weren't and Nana Faye was rocking
Yeah.
it too.
And I would always buy him a new little outfit
Yeah.
every other week. They were like, he is the best dressed kid in here. But I came in there and he was able to roll over.
Yeah.
And that was, guys, you thinking, that's a big thing. I mean, it's a big thing when an infant is able to roll over. But you're talking about at this point,
Almost 4.
almost 4-year-old for the first time, post accident, he's able to roll over.
Yeah.
And he was he was so proud. He could roll over. And it was part of our philosophy that we take a moment, celebrate the wins.
Absolutely.
That we just, man, we made such a big deal of that. He was so proud of himself. He could roll over. And man, we threw a party. I don't know what we did, but it was just, not setting up, not saying anything, still working on
Everything.
being able to swab his mouth to swallow. Just rolled over. At the same time, when I was in that room, I met this kid, 17 or 18-year-old. And he was in the center of the room, and he was standing in this device that was keeping him upright.
Yeah, he wasn't standing. The device was helping him stand.
Yeah. The device had complete control of him, of his body. I'll never forget this, and I don't remember the young boy's name, but I said, "What's his story?" Because everybody's got a story, and this another one of those heartbreaking moments. So we don't know much about him except he came from a very wealthy family. The family brought him here and dropped him off to us, and their instructions were, "If he gets better, call us. Only if he gets better." This kid had gotten in an accident, a boating accident, I believe, and severely burned, but through the trauma of the accident, could not move one muscle. The only way he could communicate was blinking his eyes. So if you looked at him and completely cognitive, his yes and no's are one blink or two blinks. And I'm like, where are those who up to this were saying, "I love you, son. I'm proud of you, son"? They're gone. And I'm like, oh, it made me step back and realized how of an important role that we, as life givers, as people who come from us, our children, how important our role is in their life. And again, another one of those places of just being present. Um, I just never got past that one too well. I'm like, because I'm thinking, we're young still, we're younger, and I'm like, if he doesn't get better, where does he go? Who's going to tell him they love him? Who's going to come visit him? When's he going to see some familiarity? When's he going home? A lot of these kids never go home. And just so I go from that one triumph moment of Gabriel rolling over to meeting this kid that communicates with a blinking of an eye. Just many things, guys, that we ran into in our journey in Atlanta. Not all, gut wrenching and will bring tears to our eyes, but a lot of that is there. A lot of kids, a lot of families are hurting, and I just believe God used us, more you than me, because you were there present more than I, in a powerful way to step in and just show the love of God to these kids. I just believe that. Almost like a Kairos moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we don't realize, obviously we know that the Lord orders our steps. He orders what we go through, and we don't know the for lack of a better way, the ripple effect that that we may have. I know that, when Gabriel was sleeping through the night at home those 8 days, in my head I was like, I am determined to do everything I can do to make him feel safe, to make him have a sense of home. Um, I took the sheets from his bed because, again, he was, um,
They were blue. I remember that.
yeah, blue gingham check, baby blue gingham check. But I took sheets, I took toys, I took. I would I would take tissue and spray my body spray on it and lay beside his head. Um, I mean, he was my job, you know, um, and we were in it. And I think that for me, and I didn't really know because you were here one weekend, that I didn't see you a weekend. Then I'd see my parent, or then I'd see my parents, and then the next weekend. And so from that Monday through Friday, Sunday at night till, you know, Sunday night to Saturday morning, really, maybe Friday night if you guys came up on a Friday, um, it was me and him and the hospital staff. I mean, we were in Atlanta. I don't think when we were inpatient, I don't think I took a day pass, except for when he got to go out. Um, but I wanted to talk, for me and my perspective of my time during that, because sometimes when you're going through something, so if like when I was recovering from back surgery. So you're in so much pain, you don't feel, you're like, when will tomorrow be, over? And you're just waiting to be on. But when you're the caregiver, it's a little bit of a different position. And so I want to talk to that just a little bit, because, like how we were saying, be in the room, be a presence. Even if you're feeling overwhelmed, it's okay to be overwhelmed, you know, because we're not down, but we're not destroyed. And so it's okay to feel like you can't handle it or you can't deal with it. It's okay to have those emotions, but have those apart from especially when you're talking about the parent child dynamic. Your child needs to know that you're the constant. Your God is the constant. So if you're relying on God to be the constant, then you can be the constant for the children. And then you can shift and have your moments. And so, my point in saying all this is no matter what you're going through, or no matter how you're feeling about what you're going through, maybe you're limited in mobility, maybe you're limited in finance, maybe you're limited in whatever the case may be. Take where you are, and again, it's all about a matter of the heart, position of the heart, and find a life rhythm in that place. You know, obviously, we can't, again, position of the heart, just like with the neurologist. I do not receive what you are saying. I didn't. I didn't come at him in the natural. My spirit was all up, like completely defiant, but I was polite. I was kind. I let him say his piece. I said, I don't have any questions. Thank you very much. And I let him walk out the door, and I never saw him again because we took a different route. The Lord opened up. We went home. I could have felt defeated at that point, could have taken the attitude of the heart, we're home now, and that's that. But no, always pressing, always pursuing with everything, with prayer and petition. Make your needs known to the Lord, right? So always pressing, always looking for God to do something, show up somehow, but recognize that in that moment, you have to find a life rhythm. I mean, I was there, we were 3 months, maybe a little more, inpatient. So 3 months of my life, I was in the hospital with him. And I had to find a life rhythm with the Lord. I had to find a life rhythm with Gabriel. I had to find a life rhythm with only seeing you every other weekend
And I had to find a life rhythm
without
without
us
you. Yeah.
because we had gone through this intensity in Savannah, the life or death intensity. And then all of a sudden, you had to go on and do the things that were necessary. And then I had to continue this part of the path, but I had to press more, I think, even into the Lord because He had to be my helpmate. And I know that some things can come off trite or come off very cliche, you know. And I was thinking about, that scripture, my grace is sufficient, you know. You can say that sometimes to some people and they can quit back or snap back. You know what I mean? Because and I'm not saying that you should say that. I'm saying you should say it to yourself, that the Lord's grace is sufficient for you, and that's in 2 Corinthians 12 and 19, that His grace, because His power is made perfect in our weakness, not my strength, because He's my strength. I don't have to be strong because He is strong. And I love it because he goes on to say here, therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weakness. It's not about a front or a facade or trying to make sure, I won't ever forget, it's like we want to hold it all together, because what will happen if we let go? Because life is out of control. So I want to superimpose my control over that life or over life. And sometimes I'll never forget, you did this in an altar service, I think maybe here in Brunswick. But it's like, he goes, many of you, I don't know if you remember this, you're like, many of you are at the end of your rope. You're white knuckling at the end of your rope, holding on. And sometimes the Lord's like, and you said this, let go of the rope. You don't have to hold on. You don't have to not feel overwhelmed. But it's important that you're in the room. It's important that you commune with the Lord. It's important that you press into Him. And even in verse 10, that is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in my weaknesses. Some people get annoyed with me because I'll laugh at them. And I joke and I say, I laugh at you because I laugh at me. I mean, I laugh at you. Because I laugh at myself. We can't take ourselves so seriously that we can't get over ourselves enough to be like, you know, the acronym FINE, freaked out, insecure, neurotic, and emotional. You know what I mean? We can get frayed. What's not okay is to stay frayed or to try to pack it all together so that I look like I'm not frayed and nobody knows that I'm not frayed, but I'm really frayed, you know? And but then also you can't be so frayed that you're like destroying everybody with all your little pieces everywhere. I mean, you can't be a hurricane. Sorry, we just went through that. But he goes on, in insults and in hardship, delighting in insults and weaknesses and hardships, in persecution and in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong. Again, where are you right now? And this is kind of like, this is what I learned. Let me say it this way.
Yeah.
During this time, specifically, when I was in Atlanta, didn't have FaceTime. We have phones, but didn't have FaceTime. It wasn't until much later that we remember we got the little AOL free trial. Remember how we used to communicate those summers?
Yeah.
That was way later. I mean, we really didn't email. Internet was barely on the scene at that point. I know this is dating us for some of you younger folks that may be watching this or may see this later. But I had to find a way to live. And I won't ever forget. I mean, we developed a little routine, you know. And Jamie's right. We had all these kind of crazy like exercises, We would get him up. I'd clean him up. I'd dress him. If there were stuff we had to do because he lived in it was called was it a Kelly bed or a Craig bed? I can't remember. Craig bed? Anyway, it's like a giant padded playpen that was like 3 foot high. The sides were, so I get down in the floor with him. Well, not in the floor, but in his bed. Um, but get him dressed, get him in his chair. We had all these oral exercises. I had dipped the sponge in this little thing, and we had all these little we were waking his mouth up, right? Not only to speak, but to eat, to swallow, obviously he was protecting his airways at that point, or he would still be on the vent. But and then when he wasn't in therapy, there was this little koi pond. We would go for walks outside and I would sing to him, and we worship the Lord while we were pushing around the koi pond. You know, I would read, and this was my escape. And most people will laugh, and some of you have heard this if you've known me very long. I would get him ready for bed, get him all settled down, make sure he was asleep, and I would slip to the nurse's station, and I would get a jumbo cup of crushed ice, and what did I get? A cherry Coke out of the vending machine. And myself and that cherry Coke would go and sit and just be. That's when I just glow. That's like my Calgon moment. That's when like all the world faded and I just enjoyed that soda in that moment by myself, you know. And and it's a very odd thing. And I think people who go through different things, but if you can ever find that life rhythm, knowing where you are, knowing what's before you, again, not future tripping, not getting way ahead of yourself, not living in the past, not being overwhelmed by the trauma of it all, but find that new life rhythm and find a way not to survive, but find a way to live. And we didn't know how long we were going to be there. We didn't know how long that kind of setup would be. And Gabriel made progress, and we would even in Savannah. I mean, we have thrown parties for him taking him going to the bathroom, a bowel movement. We would take one little
party.
yeah. Remember Frank? He was so mad. Um, but we would take the specific things that Gabriel needed and we would target those in prayer. And then when that happened, we would celebrate and we would hold on to that victory. No matter what happened that day or that week, or no matter what fell apart or what we didn't see, I would hold on to every advancement with the faithfulness of the Lord. And I would hold firmly to the faith that I professed. And I would stay in that heart of gratitude for that one thing. And it didn't matter how long I had to wait to the next thing. I would see a next thing and a next thing. And sometimes you guys would see it more. I won't ever forget the first time he could hold the weight of his head up and he didn't have the neck thing to hold his head. And I remember us rolling down, greeting y'all, and him sitting.
I never forget it, man.
He was sitting. I mean, he still had the chest thing. He still had the side things, but he was holding that head up, buddy.
I was coming up the elevator, coming down the hallway towards you, and you guys were booking it down,
rolling in his little car.
I don't think they even told me.
No.
And I'm like,
and there he is, just cheesing.
Just cheesing. Another one of those.
I'm so proud of myself.
Look at me, Daddy.
Yeah.
Look at me, Daddy.
Yeah. But I wanna finish up with this, and then we can kind of be done with this season or this portion. So after being inpatient for that length of time, then we had to be outpatient, and so he went in from 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, and it was a day rehab. So this was Monday through Friday, 9 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon. Now, so we lived this new life rhythm, right, for like 12 weeks or whatever it was. And then Okay, now's the day rehab portion. Okay, what does that look like? Well, my aunt and uncle lived in Decatur, and so we lived in their spare room, me and Gabriel, or Gabriel and I, and we drove into downtown Atlanta. We did our commute. I mean, again, he was my job, he was my work. That's what I did. I took care of him, I got him up, I drove him into downtown Atlanta, except, and this was hard for me, because think about this, I've been in the mix this entire time. I've been in the mix. And so now I can't go back. I'll never forget I can't remember if it was like the first day and I didn't know it or something, but I remember being completely floored. Like I was like there, I was ready, I was getting ready to go back with Gabriel, and they're like, sorry, Miss Jackson. And I'm like, what? What? I didn't get to do therapy. I didn't get to help him, you know? And so I was like, so then again, like that rhythm, that pattern, that kind of safe place that I had structured for myself with this kind of order of my day that I had developed in the hospital, all of a sudden that was gone, you know? And it was like, okay, now you got to relearn a whole nother rhythm. We still had the weekend thing going on with you and my parents, and that kind of thing. But now, we're in a home, which was, obviously a lot better than being in a hospital. But just, completely again started a whole new life rhythm. And I mean, and in Decatur, while it's not far out of downtown Atlanta, it's not like I could drive him to downtown Atlanta and then go back to Decatur and go back and pick him up. That's insanity. I mean, so from 9 to 3, I had to figure it out. I mean, talk about getting comfortable. Some people don't understand the context when I go, I'm good with myself. I can go to the movies by myself. I can take myself to dinner. I can go to lunch by myself. I can go shopping by myself. I can do all these things by myself, and I'm totally satisfied only because I was forced to do it. And again, it was a whole new life rhythm for me. And so I want to encourage you that no matter where you are, whether you're inpatient, whether you're outpatient, whether you are working a job you don't want to be at, or you don't have a job and you don't know when the next job is going to come, you know, find a life rhythm with the Lord and and keep pressing. Um, so one of my favorite quotes is by Thoreau, and it says, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams. Live the life you've imagined." And I will never forget when I shared it with your mom for the first time, and I don't remember what part of our journey that was, but she laughed at me. Like she was like, "Are you kidding me? Live the life you've imagined. Are you kidding me?" And I was like, "No, no, no, no. You have to understand. It is a position of the heart. I'm going confidently in the purpose that God has for me. I am walking the path because He is ordering my steps, and I will live the life that He's dreamed for me to have in my children, in my husband, in my family, in my church, in all aspects." But it's about positioning our heart before the Lord and allowing Him to be our end all faith, hope, trust, strength, peace. He is the source of all these things. And continually drawing on that, knowing that no matter where I find myself today, there is no fear of missing out because the Lord is guiding me. I just wanted that piece of encouragement, that life lesson, that anchor in the Lord where I had to keep relearning how to not just survive, but how to live.
Absolutely. We are very adaptive people if we choose to be. And are a lot. I mean, listen, life throws some
Crazy
crazy,
curveballs.
some crazy things
And
in
one
the
is
scope.
not worse than the other.
No,
Your hardest place is your hardest place. Your highest high is your highest high.
but this is a bad analogy, but I'm gonna use it anyway. It's
I
like
love bad
it's
analogies.
like the first time I watched Castaway. Talk about living a new life rhythm, coming from about to get engaged to married love of his life,
To being stranded on the
to being
island
stranded on an island
alone.
for 3 years,
Yeah, I forget.
something like that. And then, but his rhythm was to get back home.
Yeah.
And against all, I know it's just a movie, but to get back. And once he got back, he had to learn a new life rhythm because she'd moved on.
Yeah.
So you have to, whatever is thrown your way, you have to you got to find peace in it, and then reset the rhythm of life where you are.
Yeah.
And watch God just show up. He just shows up. I mean, I said it Sunday. He's in the good and he's in the bad.
Yeah.
He's
in the details.
He's in the details of your life.
Yeah. That was a good message.
So
I saw it online because I was not happy with my body. It was not cooperating.
yeah.
I was very sick, fever and all that, but I was listening.
Well, thank you guys for joining us tonight. Again, we'll be back next week.
Yeah.
And I don't know where we're headed from here in the journey, but we got probably a couple more weeks left, and then we start the new series with Job.
Yeah.
In September. So had a great weekend, a great church service. Fed 425 families on Saturday. Very hot, but man, did we have just a glorious day in the Lord with people just coming through that were struggling, and at least we helped them in some capacity of the need they're in. But anyway, until next week, love you guys and bless you. Continue your journey. In Jesus' name. Amen.